Is it something we had in the family for years or not?
My father-in-law bought it about 40 years ago.
So sort of 1960s?
Yes.
For home use or?
No, he had it in his office. And when he retired, he actually forgot it. And it was some time later, a year or two, that a colleague realised what had happened and actually returned it to him.
What luck!
A clock like this was the workhorse of Victorian public life. The round, glazed dial hanging from a short trunk was the standard timekeeper of railway booking halls, schoolrooms, banks and counting houses across Britain, anywhere a room full of strangers needed to agree on the hour. The expensive part is hidden behind the face, a chain wound around a tapering cone, a device called a fusee, which steadily evens out the pull of the mainspring as it unwinds. Without it, a spring-driven clock runs fast when fully wound and slow at the end of the week. With it, the clock keeps the same time on day 8 as it did on day 1. It is the detail that separates a serious English timepiece from a cheap import, and the reason a quietly inherited office clock can be worth thousands.
It is very rare, and there are lots of dial collectors in this country who would pay a lot of money for this. Its price at auction, realistically at the moment, is in the region of £3,000.
Right.
It's a great object.
Yes.
So well rescued.
Yes, absolutely.
Is this a piece that's come down in the family?
Yes, it was either my great-uncle or my grandfather's.
Yeah.
And it was left in a deposit box at the bank.
Yeah.
And it was only when the bank started charging rent that I, in fact, collected the box. And we had it at home for something like 6 months or so, because we hadn't got a key to the box. So my wife decided to smash the box open, and we found that and a lot of junk.
There is a reason a Swiss watch this complicated cost a fraction of its English rival. In the valleys of the Jura Mountains, watchmaking was broken into dozens of separate trades. One workshop cut the wheels, another wound the springs, another fitted the delicate chiming work, and a single movement passed through many specialist hands before it was ever cased. That division of labour let the Swiss flood the world with affordable complicated watches, just as English firms, still building each one largely under a single roof, were quietly pricing themselves out of the market. The exhibition medals stamped inside the case were the pedigree a buyer wanted to see, and the reason an export piece like this one could shame watches that cost 5 times as much.
They're still worth a few quid. You probably would have to pay for this now, sort of trade price would be around about £3,000. I'm glad you broke the box open.
Yes, so we...
You've watched hundreds of these moments. The ordinary object. The jaw-dropping value. But here's the question we never ask: what's sitting in your home? You don't have to wait for the roadshow to come to your town. In seconds, Velco tells you what it is, when it was made, and what it could be worth. It's like having the roadshow in your pocket. Open the App Store and search Velco. VELQO. Or point your phone at the screen. You might be sitting on a fortune.
Sadly, I see it's been damaged. Now, have you had it a long time or not?
Well, yes, it's come through the family. My father left it to me, and I presume...
By the 1880s, the Doulton works at Burslem, in the Staffordshire potteries, had spent a generation turning humble earthenware into prized decorative art, and pieces like this were where its modeller showed off. Victorian drawing rooms adored an object that did more than one job at once, and this little tower is a machine of obsessions. It tells the time, reads the air pressure, and takes the temperature, with a revolving lamp room on top driven by its own separate movement. The whole conceit stands barely a foot high, a piece of theatre dressed up as a stone lighthouse. Survivors are vanishingly rare. Most were knocked, chipped, scrubbed too hard, and quietly thrown out, which is precisely why an intact one stops an expert in his tracks.
I think if that was put in the right auction, you could well see towards £4,000 on it.
Agreed.
What a cracking good thing. How did you get it, or how did your family get it?
Well, my great-aunt Connie inherited it from her great-uncle, who was a racehorse jockey in London, and some lord's son got into serious debt with him, and they gave my great-great-uncle this as part payment of the debt.
Before bedside lamps, a gentleman who woke in the dark and wanted the time reached for a watch like this and pressed the slide in its side, and it chimed the hours and quarters straight back to him on tiny steel gongs. A repeater was the single most expensive thing a Victorian watchmaker could build, hundreds of parts filed and fitted by hand, a complication that doubled or trebled the price of an already costly watch. The prize medals this maker won at the Great Brussels Expositions of the 1890s were the trade's equivalent of a gold star, awarded for exactly this kind of work. And watches this intricate all but vanished within a generation, once the wristwatch took over after the First World War. Almost nobody had the skill, or the patience, to make them again.
Well, I tell you something, that must have been a fairly hefty debt, because that is a cracking good watch, and that would have been a serious sum of money new.
Yeah.
That would be fetching at auction at least 3,000, and I would put it to you by the time, and it would need a little bit of a clean and oil because it probably hasn't been looked at for some years, that would be retailing for towards £5,000. It is a...
Well, the gentleman there is my father. He was in the RAF in the Second World War as a general dog's body, basically, and what have you, but he served in France and Singapore and so on. We came across it, sadly, when he passed away 34 years ago. It's been basically...
Leonidas, the small Swiss firm that built this oversized watch in the 1930s, did not disappear into history. It later merged with Heuer, and that combined company is the one the world now knows as Tag Heuer, the name on the dial of countless modern chronographs. Oversized aviator chronographs from this era, made deliberately huge so a pilot could read them at a glance and strap them over thick flying gear, are now among the most fiercely chased watches in the entire vintage market. And the movement inside does something you almost never see. It can run its timing hand backwards as well as forwards, a piece of mechanical showing off that made it a genuine curiosity even when it was new. A military rarity, an aviation story, and a blue-chip name in its bloodline, all of it sitting unworn in a drawer for 34 years.
Okay, so let's say, realistically, for something like that, £2,500?
Right.
You happy with that?
Very.
Before you go, a quick word that could save you from a costly mistake. Every week, treasures like the ones you just watched are sold at car boot and yard sales for pennies by people who simply didn't know what they had. Don't let that be you. With Velco, just snap a photo of anything in your home, and in seconds you'll know what it really is and what it's really worth. And it's completely free. Point your phone's camera at the code on screen now, or search the App Store for Velco, the V-E-L-Q-O-N-O before you let it go.